Welcome back to Almost a True Crime Podcast, a product of Bitch Pack Media. We are your hosts, Taryn and Madison. Listener discretion is advised due to the mature content and the amount of cuss words we say. You've been warned.
Hey guys, does that always go on so long?
I think we start talking earlier.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
We haven't done this in a while.
I know. I was thinking about that today. I'm like, holy shit, this feels weird. I don't know how. I don't know what we're supposed to even do.
I don't remember. Hey guys, sorry about last week.
Oh yeah.
Our bulk recording ran out and then it was Halloween because we mathed wrong on the weeks.
Yeah, that didn't work out right.
So we're recording one today and then on Friday, we're going to record another whole batch.
So you'll be good to go. No worries, guys.
No more worries.
We won't do that to you again.
I mean, we probably will, but hopefully not anytime soon. It's hard to say anything to catch up on because we truly haven't done anything.
No.
Everything we talk about now is on the Thursday podcast.
Yeah.
So if you want to know what's up, head there. Yeah, or the one-shots.
Those get a little bit of banter, too.
They do.
This ain't that anymore.
We talked about the dentist for like 11 minutes. I was listening to it like, we really did. So yeah, I guess we can just get right to it.
Okay, sounds good to me.
It's so funny we haven't recorded in over a month. So I don't even remember the last thing we talked about. Because I also don't listen to the episodes.
Yeah, if you're looking for life updates, you're not going to get them here anymore.
Not
and
anymore.
And if you're not interested, then you're welcome.
You're welcome.
I did see that.
We have listened.
Macy Bookout from Teen Mom started a true crime podcast.
Did she?
People do not like it.
Really?
They said she's very like monotone and like her, I don't know. People just don't like it, I guess, but I haven't listened to it obviously, so.
Why do people think they can do this? Kim Kardashian.
Yeah. And why is it always true crime? Why? Do something else, guys.
We say. You know what?
It's so overdone.
What are we, almost 3 years in, though? That's wild.
No. We have nothing to show for it.
Nothing.
Just kidding.
Kinda. Not really.
Just kidding. I love it. I love doing this for you guys.
If you could see her face, it says otherwise.
Just kidding.
I think it frequently, too, and then we do it. I'm like, this is kind of fun.
I know, me
but
too.
But the lead up to it, I'm like, this blows.
The only thing I ever think is, wow, it'd be more funny if, like, or it'd be more fun if I was, like, getting money.
Yes, exactly that.
Other than that, I enjoy it when I do it.
Yeah, like, it's I don't know how much longer I can do this for free and also the other one for free.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Oh, well, I think this often, and yet here we sit.
Every week, we just pull it together, and we're like, this is fine, actually.
I have too much anxiety to quit anything.
Same. One day it'll feel right for the both of us and we won't even have to say anything. Yeah. We'll just be done. But today's not that day.
Nope. Let's go.
A really fucking long one today to make up for the couple short ones that we did and then the lack of an entire one last week.
Whatever. We have so many Patreon ones that are pretty good, so.
You can head there if you're bored.
Yeah.
Don't be cheap.
Yeah.
The Patreon is not expensive.
It's not.
And it's banging.
There is some really good ones on there right now.
Yeah.
Like, we've done a lot that we haven't released now.
I know. Is that crazy?
Yeah.
It's the best feeling.
So, you guys should head there and listen to those.
Okay. This week, I'm doing the Terri Schiavo case. Do you remember this?
No.
I'm sure you do.
Oh. See, there's this look you give me where I know I'm answering wrong.
Because
you're like, yeah, you will.
You do know this. So a lot of my information about this comes from the government because it was such a huge case. And it's
the American government?
The American government.
Don't forget to vote tomorrow.
It's too late.
You're right.
It's Wednesday.
Comes out on Wednesday.
I hope you voted yesterday. And because I started to read a book about it, and it's just such a divisive issue, this case was, that, like, everything is extremely biased. So keep that in mind. I'm just going to tell you what it is, because it's just going to, like, slam right into the whole thing. Terri Schiavo was that case of that woman who was brain dead, but her family wouldn't allow her to have her feeding tube removed to die. Still nothing?
No, it doesn't sound familiar.
Wow. This was huge.
Why? Well, I guess you'll probably tell me, right?
I'll tell you
Okay.
why. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing, actually. So, Terri Schiavo was born Teresa Marie Schindler to Mary and Robert Schindler on December 3rd, 1963, in Lower Moreland Township, Pennsylvania, which was a suburb of Philly. She had 2 younger siblings, Bobby and Suzanne. She was a girl who loved animals and worshipped cute television stars. She named her gerbils after Starsky and Hutch.
Oh, that's cute.
Isn't that
gerbils?
Cute? Gerbils. What a kid pet.
See, I always think I would want something like that, but it's still just a little rodent.
Yeah, that freaks me out.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I don't think I would ever
Tiny
want
brains.
to hold it.
No.
It's crawling all over.
I don't like it.
She daydreamed about working for a veterinarian when she grew up, or maybe just being a dog groomer. She was a shy girl, always overweight as a child with big glasses, but shiny hair and perfect skin. Her first car, a black and gold Trans Am with a T-top roof, first of all, which is a great car. And that's her first car? That's crazy.
Showing out.
My first car was a piece of garbage.
My first car was a red 99 Mercury Tracer.
I think mine was a 94 Pontiac Grand Prix.
But I also got mine in 2011. I didn't get a car until I was 18.
Okay.
So
I didn't start driving until I was 17, so I didn't get it till I was 17. Then when I graduated.
That was red, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Look at us. Hot girls with red cars.
Hot girls with red cars. And then when I graduated, I think I got like a 2009 Ford Fusion.
Oh, yeah.
As a gift.
Also red, right?
Yes.
What was your car before the purple Jeep?
I had a Chevy Cruze that I leased, that I hit Jordan with.
Was it blue?
No, it was black. Oh. And then I went from that to the purple Jeep, I think.
And then the gray Jeep.
And the gray Jeep, and then
Now your car.
my car.
Your white Jeep?
Right? Am I missing?
I know. I feel like there was a different car before your purple Jeep, or did we just not hang out a lot at all? It's like, I cannot remember what I rode in with you.
I can't remember either.
But I remember you getting that purple Jeep.
Yeah.
Like, we were definitely friends hanging out at that point.
Seems like too large of a gap between when I returned that black car and then...
Did you just not have a car for a minute? Were you just driving like your mom's car or something?
What was I doing?
What were you doing with your life?
No, I had a car. It's coming back to me. Did I switch back to the Fusion?
That's what I was going to say. Wait,
did
you have the Fusion again?
I may have. That sounds the most right to me. I'll have to ask my mom.
Yeah.
I think that's what I did, though. Because then I gave that car to my aunt when she needed a car. And that's why I got the purple Jeep.
Oh, you're right. You know what? This is all tracking.
Remember when we said there's no banter? We lied.
No, but I swear, like, I've thought of that twice in the past, like, couple months. Like, what car did Madison have before that purple Jeep? I don't know why.
Ford Fusion. A sensible Ford Fusion. Okay, so her first car exuded the flash and confidence that she herself never had. So Terri's weight reached more than 200 pounds, and late in her senior year, she went on the Nutrisystem diet and lost more than 50 pounds.
Nutrisystem in high school.
Yes.
Huh.
Also Nutrisystem. What an odd fucking thing, which still exists. Who doesn't Marie Osmond?
I thought it was Rachel Ray. Is it Marie Osmond?
I definitely don't think it's Rachel Ray.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I don't like Rachel Ray. She's my enemy.
Oh.
I don't think so anymore, but I did hate her a lot.
Why? What'd she do? Racist? No, that was the other one.
Who?
Paula Deen. Is it Paula Deen?
Oh,
racist?
yeah. Well, yeah. Paula Deen. Paula Deen.
Yeah.
No, she was selling, which is her whole thing, but she was selling a garbage bowl, like a bowl to put your garbage in before you put your garbage in the garbage, but it cost like $57, and it made me irate.
It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of.
Thank you. It was very stupid. Just
like
use a bowl you already have, like a popcorn bowl, like the popcorn throw-up bowl.
I just put everything in my sink and then take it all out and throw it away.
Yeah.
When I'm cooking.
Or just use a bowl you already have. Why are you selling a garbage bowl for $60?
Or just move your garbage over to where your
Yeah, she can get the hell out of here.
You know what? I hate her too. What a stupid fucking thing to do.
So anyway, her friend did an interview with the Washington Post where she said that Terri really hated attention and the spotlight. But when she started losing weight, no, you don't. There's this TikTok today that was like, I hate when people say that like people who back into parking spaces only want attention because it just makes it easier for when you're leaving. And then she was like, but I forgot, like, I do like attention. Oh, wait, I do like attention.
I cannot easily back into a parking space, so that doesn't happen.
I can't pull into a parking space because I can't see the lines.
Yeah, it's not.
But I can see the lines backing up because of the camera.
Yeah.
So she said that Terri hated attention and the spotlight, but when she started losing weight and went to college, she really came out of her shell a little bit.
Nice.
She attended Bucks County Community College, where she met Michael Schiavo in 1982. Their first date was dinner, a movie, and her first ever kiss.
In college?
In college.
Wow.
On the second date, Terri took Schiavo to meet one of her best friends, Sue Pickwell, and her family. Pulling aside Pickwell and her big sister, Terri confided that Michael wanted to marry her, which sounds crazy, but Terri was, like, extremely excited. They were, like, the woman who did this interview didn't really like Michael at this point anymore, but said, like, Terri was very excited about it.
Yeah.
Like, it seemed kind of weird, but, like, you can't not be excited for someone who's that excited for something. She said that everything happened so fast and it was such a good feeling for her. He was good looking and it felt good to have someone pay attention to her. I think she was overwhelmed. In one of his rare interviews, Michael Schiavo talked about how hard he fell for her. She had this presence, this aura that just attracted you. She was shy and outgoing at the same time. He introduced her to his giant family. Michael is the youngest of like 5 other boys. Wow. 5 boys. No, thank you. And a family birthday party. She hung back at first, but surprised the brothers by hanging along with their chaos. She fit right in, Scott Schiavo said, which is one of his brothers. Mike was always a happy kid, but when he met Terri, he just perked up tenfold, is what Scott said. Terri and Michael were engaged relatively quickly, obviously, like I said, and Terri began making plans for an elaborate wedding at Our Lady of Good Counsel, the Catholic parish the Schindler family attended. She was still a month shy of her 21st birthday when the big day came on November 10th, 1984. She was only 20. That is really fast.
It is. 20 is just so young to get married.
It is young. And you can't even drink at your wedding.
I thought I wanted to get married at 20.
Good thing you didn't. Can you imagine the shithole wedding you would have had compared to like what we got to have? In that interview with CNN, Michael Schiavo said that when he first saw Terri come down the aisle, all he thought was she was just gorgeous. All I saw was her big smile. Their first dance was Tonight I Celebrate My Love by Peabo Bryson and Roberta Flack, which is the most 80s thing I've ever heard in my life.
I do not know that song.
I only know Peabo Bryson from when we played Name That Tune, which is an Olympic sport in my family.
Yes.
So if you ever think we don't know the name of a song, we do know the name of that song.
And who sang it and probably what year it came out. I, like, ever since I started coming around, if I'm, like, in the car and there's a song on and I'm like, this sounds like something your parents might have listened to once, I make sure I push the button so I can, and then I try to put it in my brain. Like, remember, it's gonna come up one day.
If you have...
Phil does the same shit to me, though.
An Alexa at your house, there's a game you can load on her called... What is it? It's
Song Pop.
Song Quiz, something like that.
Yeah.
And
yeah, maybe it's quiz.
It's so fucking fun. It just goes through a round. It's like 10... She'll play 10 songs, and you have to guess who sings it and what song it is. She adds up all the points for you. It's very fun. And you can play by decades. Anyway, that's how I know who Peabo Bryson is.
Okay.
After the wedding, Terri drifted apart from her close girlfriends. She and her childhood best friend, Diane Meyer, had a falling out and never really spoke again. They don't elaborate on that, but I would like to know more because I'm very nosy. Yeah. Terri remained friends with Pickwell, but Pickwell says they were newlyweds. You wanted to give them space, so they didn't really hang out that much either. Meanwhile, Terri was folded into the big, tight-knit Schiavo family. Karen Schiavo, one of her sister-in-laws, said that she instantly became one of them and that Michael and Terri were deeply in love. They went to Disney World for their honeymoon, and she believed that a good life meant that one day she'd be able to vacation there every year with her kids, which sounds lame and also unattainable with how expensive Disney got.
There's people that fucking do it, and I'm like, okay, so you make money.
Or you're in a whole lot of debt.
Or that. I have yet to ever go to Disney.
Me either.
I'd like to.
Should we go together for the first time? Like without your kid? And everything, just me and you?
Yeah. Why not?
We need to see if it's cool or not before we spend the money to take our families
Let me
there.
test it out.
Yeah. So Terri and Michael moved to Florida in 1986 following Terri's parents who moved there. Michael worked as a restaurant manager while Terri took up bookkeeping with an insurance company. I don't know why I said it like that. At work, Terri made friends with some coworkers, including Jackie Rhodes. By 1989, Rhodes said Terri and Michael were having marital problems. The Schindlers have suggested the same in recent years, which is not going to be surprising once you hear all the shit that happens. The Schiavos dispute the claim that they were having marital troubles, which I am inclined to believe because it seems like she was much closer to Michael's family than she was her own friends and family, which isn't that odd.
No.
That happens to some families when you get married. Still, both Rhodes and Michael Schiavo, in an interview with CNN, say that the couple had been trying to conceive a child. Terri went to see a gynecologist who addressed problems with an irregular, there we go. I don't know why I can't talk today, menstrual cycle. The last time she spoke to Terri, Rhodes said she had just gone to get her hair done. Terri was toying with the idea of going back to her natural color, so Rhodes called that Saturday to ask what she had decided. Terri, Rhodes said, was in tears that she and Michael had had a fight over the cost of the salon visit. We don't know if any of this is true.
I mean, it does
and that
happen.
does happen. Hair is sneaky expensive. It's not expensive, but boys don't understand the cost of hair services.
Not at all. No idea.
None.
It's not a $20 haircut.
No, it's not. It's not at all. Terri also started to lose more weight. Scott Schiavo remembers sitting next to her when the couple came back to Pennsylvania for a family funeral. Terri was eating a huge plate of food, but she was thinner than ever. Scott remembers asking her how she could eat all of that and still be so thin, and she just laughed and said that she must have a good metabolism. So, here we go. I never actually knew what happened to her because it gets very lost in like all that this becomes. Early the next morning in February of 1990, Terri collapsed in the hallway in her house. Michael heard her fall, found her there. She was 26 years old and weighed 110 pounds, which she was someone who weighed 200 pounds not that long ago.
Shit.
Tiny. She was not breathing and had no pulse. There were no signs of a crime or violence and no illegal narcotics in her system. They attempted to resuscitate her, and she was transported to the Humana Northside Hospital. Paramedics had her intubated and ventilated. Terri Schiavo never regained consciousness after this.
Jesus.
So a lot of the next stuff is very medical heavy. I tried to do my best, but this is such a medical case that there's just no getting around it, and I have no way to even explain it.
Okay.
And then the rest of it's very legal heavy, but I'd be trying my best.
We appreciate you.
Whatever. So, the cause of Terri Schiavo's collapse was determined to be cardiac arrest as a 26-year-old woman. Her medical chart contained a note that said she apparently has been trying to keep her weight down with dieting, drinking liquids most of the time during the day, and drinking about 10 to 15 glasses of iced tea every day.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Like, I don't know if she's just trying to make herself full, like just trying to drink. So I wonder if she was just drinking it all day just so she wouldn't be hungry enough to eat.
Oh, damn.
Upon admission to the hospital, she was noted as suffering from hypokalemia. Low potassium levels is what that is. Which, they don't sound that low, but I guess I don't know how serious potassium levels are. Her serum potassium level was an abnormally low 2.0. The normal range for adults is 3.5 to 5.0, so a little less than half, I guess. Her sodium and calcium levels were normal. Electrolyte imbalance is often caused by drinking excessive fluids, and a serious consequence of hypokalemia can be heart rhythm abnormalities, including sudden arrhythmia death syndrome, which is basically like SIDS for adults.
Right.
Like you just die.
Yep.
Schiavo was eventually switched from being fed by a nasogastric feeding tube, the one in your nose, to a PEG feeding tube, the one in your stomach. So that happened right away. After a year, 2 doctors independently diagnosed Terri as being in a persistent vegetative state, PVS.
Damn.
Instantly.
Like, neurologically, like, there was nothing going on. Her brain died.
Yeah. Nothing. She just, like, fell in her house one day and just never woke up again.
That's insane.
Okay. Now things get kind of messy and confusing. The timeline gets weird because so many things overlap over the course of all the years that this happens. So if something seems out of order, I tried. On June 18th, 1990, the court appointed Michael Schiavo as Terri Schiavo's legal guardian. This appointment was not disputed by the Schindlers at this time, which is completely normal. That's like half the reason people get married, because your partner is now your next of kin.
Right.
Like, it'd be like if Dolly was in charge of, like, Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, he was appointed her guardian. Her parents had no problem with this at this time. In November of 1990, Michael Schiavo took Terri to the University of California, San Francisco, for experimental nerve stimulation with a thalamic stimulator, which is a device that can be used to stop tremors. It is commonly used with people who have Parkinson's. So they, like, inserted something into her brain. The treatment took several months and was unsuccessful. He returned to Florida with her in January 1991 and admitted her as an inpatient to the Metaplex Rehabilitation Center in Bradenton, Florida. On July 19th, 1991, Terri Schiavo was transferred to the Sable Palm Skilled Care Facility, where she received neurological testing and regular speech and occupational therapy until 1994. While that's going on, in 1992, Michael filed a malpractice suit against Terri's gynecologist on the basis that he failed to diagnose bulimia as a cause of her infertility. Terri had gone to the doctor because she had stopped menstruating, but the doctor had failed to take her medical history into account, which may have revealed an eating disorder. Her lawyer maintains that this was a missed cry for help. It's very possible Terri was completely aware of why she stopped menstruating and why she was having fertility problems. So going to see a doctor could have been her trying to get help. Like, I'm sure if she was bulimic, she would have maybe not said it out loud, but been like, well, I can't have a baby because, like, I don't keep any food.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that stuff can, like, that eating disorders really do mess with your cycle, but, like, I wonder, like, how unhealthy was she? Like, no one was noticing? Like, did she not look unhealthy? 110 pounds seems like...
Comes up. Oh, it comes up.
Besides that, like, that one person said something about her being thin. But I'm like, the doctor wasn't concerned at all. Like, does she not look alarmingly thin?
That's what he's saying. Like,
but also, I feel like her husband probably knew. I don't know, though. I guess, like, you can really hide that stuff.
Let's see. I get into it in just, like, 1 second.
Okay.
During the case, one of Terri's friends testified that she knew Schiavo was bulimic because whenever they went out to eat, immediately after eating her meal, she would excuse herself to go to the bathroom, which could be anything, but, like, always.
Yeah.
Like, right when you're done, right? Because, I mean, when you're bulimic, you want to throw it up, like, right away. Mm-hmm. You don't want to give it any time to sit in your stomach. Michael also admitted he noticed some weird behaviors of Terri's that in hindsight are clear was an eating disorder, but at the time he couldn't really piece it all together and make it make sense like that. Hindsight's always 20/20. I'm sure he was okay.
And he only had brothers.
Yeah.
Like, he's probably not she's equipped.
Eating in front of him.
Right.
Bulimia is, like, a hard one because they're acting normal in front of you.
Especially, like, someone that was bigger and then, like, lost all this weight. Yeah.
Yeah. Experts say the serious health risks exist long before a victim looks sick. In Schiavo's case, her lawyer said she was not excessively thin when she went to the doctor at this time. But they are saying that he should have caught it because the health risks start way before you can even tell there's a problem.
Yeah.
Psychologist Doug Bunnell, president of the National Eating Disorders Association, said while he could not comment on the specifics of the Schiavo case, it is often impossible to predict which sufferers are in immediate danger. While there is no cure for bulimia, there were things that could and should have been done for her that would have controlled it. Basically, I don't know why it wasn't in there, because they're saying her cardiac arrest was from her eating disorder.
Right, yeah.
So he's suing, saying, like, this would have never happened if he would have caught this eating disorder earlier.
Right.
In November of 1992, Michael won the case and was awarded $6.8 million by the jury.
Wow.
later reduced to $2 million, as Terri was found partly at fault for her collapse because she was partly at fault for her own condition, which is true. After attorney's fees and other expenses, Michael received $300,000 to himself, and $750,000 was put into a trust fund for Terri's medical care. Because Terri's still alive.
Right.
Technically still alive. So she's just a part of this as anyone else.
And, gosh, all this treatment could not be fucking cheap.
No. According to Michael, in early 2003, the Schindlers demanded that he share the malpractice money with them, which is just a very weird thing.
Yeah, I don't... Why?
I did say someone's maybe out of order.
It's okay.
Okay. So, in May of 1998, this is 8 years after Terri has collapsed. She hasn't been conscious for 8 years. Michael Schiavo filed a petition to remove Terri Schiavo's feeding tube, which her parents very much opposed.
Why? Like, I just don't understand.
This
like the quality
is crazy.
You have no quality of life.
No, there is none.
And she can't, like, it's not like they're saving her to, like, donate her organs.
No.
Because they're...
No.
You can't.
It gets crazy how much they want to keep her the way that she is. So Richard Pierce was appointed by the court as her second guardian ad litem, which isn't that odd for a stranger to be appointed as guardian, because she needs someone acting in her care, which Michael can act in her care, but it's also his care. She needs someone to put in her shoes, basically. And on December 29th, 1998, Pierce reported that as recent as September 11th, 1998, so just a few months prior, Dr. Jeffrey Karp indicated the ward refers to Terri, is in a chronic vegetative state and exhibits an absence of voluntary activity or cognitive behavior and an inability to communicate or interact purposefully with her environment. That distinction is important because in the report, Terri's mom states that Terri displays certain reactions to her presence, which she ascribes to some type of low-level cognitive function, to which staff members had to say that, like, nurses have observed some reactions from Terri, but they're completely random.
Right.
They're not in response to her mother or anything. Dr. Karp says her chance of any improvement to a functional level is essentially zero. And Pierce said after reviewing her file and talking to her primary care physician, Dr. Vincent Gambone, it appears how Dr. Karp feels is shared among most of her physicians. So everyone who's looking at her is basically like, there's 0% chance.
Yeah, like, I've seen so many episodes of Grey's Anatomy where, like, people's body, like, oh, shit, fuck, sorry. Like, sometimes your body just does things.
Yeah.
Like, just...
You have no control.
Yeah.
Okay. The ward, Terri, apparently never executed a living will or any writing expressing her intention concerning the withholding or withdrawal of artificial life-prolonging procedures.
Well, yeah, she was 26.
Yeah. No person interviewed by the undersigned indicated having any knowledge of any written advance directive of the ward either. She never wrote anything. No one ever even knows if she wrote anything and it's sitting somewhere. None of that. From the time of the ward's initial cardiac arrest through February 1993, the ward's husband played a very active and aggressive role in pursuing treatment for her, all with the cooperation of the ward's parents. He pursued aggressive medical and surgical treatment of the ward, including the surgical placement of experimental electrodes in an effort to stimulate the ward's damaged brain to restore itself. He visited the ward regularly and was actively and closely involved with every aspect of her care and rehabilitation. He was an aggressive advocate for the ward and never hesitated to question the nursing home staff concerning matters that he didn't understand or like. A previously appointed guardian ad litem for the ward referred to Mr. Schiavo as, quote, a nursing home administrator's nightmare. This is because I make that distinction because in February 1993, Terri's parents and him had a falling out over all this. Mr. Schiavo claims the argument arose because he refused to share the settlement money with the Schindlers. They, on the other hand, claim that Mr. Schiavo failed to honor commitments he had previously made to continue to seek aggressive treatments for the ward's condition. The Schindlers retained counsel and sought Mr. Schiavo's removal as guardian, but were unsuccessful. So they're like trying to sue to get him not to be in charge of Terri anymore. After February 1993, Mr. Schiavo's attitude concerning treatment for the ward apparently changed. Early in 1994, for example, he refused to consent to treat an infection from which the ward was then suffering in order that she not be resuscitated in the event of cardiac arrest. Understandable. She has not had a thought in her brain for 4 years at this point. The nursing home where she resided at that time sought to intervene, which ultimately led the ward's husband to reverse his decision and authorize antibiotic treatment. It also resulted in a transfer of the ward to the nursing home where she now resides. Mr. Schiavo admitted to the undersigned that he essentially gave up hope that the ward would recover about 4 years after the incident. So we were like, after the 4-year mark, he's like, we need to just be done with this.
Yeah. Nothing is changing. Like, there's
no way to live.
No.
I want, if this happens to me, I want like a year. Give me a year to see if like any medical things move fast.
Yeah, like a year is kind of long though. Like if I've got nothing going on,
that's true.
If there's
it's
really
too expensive,
no hope,
just let me go.
Give me a few months. Yeah, I would say like 3 to 6 months. If there is no brain activity, pull the plug.
Yeah, that's true. I'll take like a year, and then if there's like zero, nothing, they don't even think anything medical could be invented. Yeah, that might just be done.
If it's looking grim,
don't let me live like that.
Absolutely not.
Humiliating.
I would be pissed.
You heard it here first.
So yeah,
we have to save this recording forever, and it's gonna come up in court when Phil tries to keep you alive.
Yeah, right. They'll be like, no, she's just sleeping. He's like, all right, pull the plug.
She wouldn't want to live like this.
It's too much. They're like, that's not a feeding tube. It's just a little oxygen. No, she's gone.
Clamp it. Okay.
Phil tells me to just shove a bone up his ass and let the ducks take him out back.
I hate him. I hate Phil.
I do too.
Okay, so he admitted that he gave up hope after around 4 years that she would recover from this accident at all.
Which 4 years is still such a long time that he
time.
And he was, it's not like he just put her somewhere and was like.
Yeah, he was trying.
And he was so active in the decisions.
So the New Guardian ad litem said, regarding the pending petition filed by Mr. Schiavo to withdraw the gastric feeding tube which sustains the ward, he claims the ward told him after their marriage that she would not want to be kept alive artificially. He indicates that she related her feelings to an uncle of hers who was severely injured in an automobile accident and was comatose at the time. At one point, according to Mr. Schiavo, during a train trip from Pennsylvania to Florida in the mid-1980s, the ward told her husband that if she were ever in a situation of being artificially maintained, that she would want the life support removed, which seems oddly specific with no proof.
But I feel like people do have those conversations when you're around stuff like that.
Yeah, like don't ever let that happen to me.
Right. So
yeah,
I feel like
he's saying they have had these conversations.
Right.
Mr. Schiavo indicated strongly to the undersigned that his petition to withdraw life support has nothing to do with the money held in the guardian estate, which he would inherit upon her death as her sole heir at law, because that's also...
Yeah, but it's not even like it's that much money.
No.
That he's like, all right.
Yeah.
I'm going to cash in, unplug
$700,000, and it's probably not even that anymore.
Yeah.
After all this treatment. Mr. Schiavo has admitted at least 2 romantic involvements since her accident. It is apparent that he has reached a point where he has no hope of the ward's recovery and wants to get on with his own life. He indicates that he wants the life support withdrawn because that is what she would want and that she is his responsibility because he is still her husband. Her parents feel the exact opposite. They tried to have Michael removed so that they could be in charge of their daughter's medical decisions. They claim Terri confided in them that she was going to leave Michael, which Michael denies. Convenient. They do admit, however, that they never spoke with Terri about her wishes regarding artificial life-prolonging procedures. They then said they have no objection with Michael wanting to get on with his life and welcomed him to divorce Terri and let them take over completely, which is where they mess up. Terri's estate, because of that malpractice suit, was presently at this moment worth around over $700,000 because I think it is like an interest-bearing type of situation. Because of the lack of will, who stands to inherit all of that? Michael.
Right.
Well, if Michael divorces Terri like they are asking him to do, who would get it then?
Her parents.
Her parents. Yeah. They would benefit from that. So because of all of this, essentially, his request for the tube to be removed is denied. He's the only witness saying that's what Terri wants, and he's the only one set to benefit from that decision. In Michael's benefit, though, Pierce did say that If more information comes out or the court interprets this differently and does find more than likely that Terri would have wanted the tube removed, the court should remove it.
That's insane that they can deny that.
Isn't that wild?
Like, so what? This is just like, this is it. When does she finally, like, when do you end it then?
I will tell you.
Okay.
So they are saying, like, yes, Terri has a right to choose not to use life-prolonging procedures, but we have no idea if she made that choice. So they're saying just because you said she wouldn't want this doesn't mean, like, she wouldn't want this. Okay, now we're getting into the 2000s. So this is a decade later.
I just can't imagine the money. Like,
how?
I
don't know.
Oh, my gosh.
This is why it's so important to have a living will also. Mm-hmm. This is exactly what a living will is for. There's almost no other point besides saying if you would want this to happen to you or not. So go get one, people. Hit up my lawyer, Ashley Morgan Root. Shout outs to her. Okay. I want her to give me a trust.
We need to have her on.
We do need to have her on the regular one. She knows a lot more than I do, and I speak very passionately about it, but she could really tell you what the fuck is up. So, given the lack of a living will, a trial was held before Pinellas? I meant to look that up. Pinellas.
P-I-E?
Pinellas.
Pinellas. That's what I would say.
Pinellas. 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 Penis. Anyway, trial was held before Pinellas County Judge George Greer during the week of January 24th, 2000, to determine what Terri Schiavo's wishes would have been regarding life-prolonging procedures. And Michael hires a bombshell lawyer, George Philos, who had already won a landmark right-to-die case in Florida the year before this, I think. Or maybe, like, right when Terri got sick, quote. Mm-hmm. He won, like, a huge case. Basically, going over what I just said, both parties really have no right to point the finger at each other because the argument is there for both of them. Him allowing her to remove the feeding tube, he would inherit her whole estate. Her parents encouraged Michael to divorce Terri and move on with his life. They would be in control of her whole estate, and her wishes that they already admitted they have no idea what they were. Among those interviewed was Pierce, who did the first investigation, and he truly seems to want the best. He admitted that he had feelings about Terri's situation before he was appointed her guardian ad litem, so maybe he should not have taken the role.
Yeah.
And the court was even like, it's almost impossible to not have a feeling about the situation.
Right.
Like,
it's very one way or the other.
Yeah, you feel something about it, it's fine. Like, you're fine. He said his previous decision was extremely close, and had he been able to hear some of the interviews that happened at this trial, it could have turned out differently. But it all boiled down to Michael was not clear and convincing in his argument giving the conflict of interest. There was an argument that Michael was not acting in good faith because he has now waited 8 years to request this. The court basically said there's no need to comment on that. It's not indicative of anything bad. And they did say that Michael is still her most frequent visitor despite wanting to remove her feeding tube, and he still maintains care of her to make sure she is in great physical health where she is. There were no written declarations by Terri in regard to her current situation, so the court had to rely on oral arguments. Her mother said that during the Karen Ann Quinlan case in New Jersey, that case is a 1985 right-to-die case where Karen fell into a vegetative state after taking Valium with alcohol while on a crash diet. So if I learned anything, just don't do crash diets.
Nope.
Just don't do them. Terri said to her mother that they should just leave her alone after her father was trying to remove her feeding tube. Her mother said Terri made these declarations when she was between 17 and 20. However, a quick fact check by cross-referencing dates on the newspaper revealed Terri would have only been around 11.
Yeah.
Which is something an 11-year-old would say. You have no concept of life or death.
If they even have an opinion on something like that.
You just don't want to die when you're 11. You don't understand that you're actually not living anymore. Yeah. The court in this instance is using the precedent from the Estelle Browning case. Estelle was an 86-year-old woman who fell in 1989, causing her to go into a vegetative state, and was kept alive despite having writing in 1985 that she would not want life-prolonging procedures if there wasn't a chance for improvement. So, the conditions of the Estelle Browning precedent case are, 1, the surrogate refers to Terri. Mm-hmm. The surrogate must be No, wait. The surrogate refers to Michael because he's acting on behalf of Terri. The surrogate must be satisfied that the patient executed any document knowingly, willingly, and without undue influence, and that the evidence of the patient's oral declarations is reliable. Basically just saying that you have to be sure she said these things. 2, the surrogate must be assured that the patient does not have a reasonable probability of recovering competency so that the right could be exercised directly by the patient. She has no chance of recovery. She's not going to be able to
come back and say, no, don't do this.
Yeah, no. That will not happen. And 3, the surrogate must take care to assure that any limitations or conditions expressed either orally or in the written declaration have been carefully considered and satisfied. It's like you have to do what she said.
Yeah.
If she said it. Mm-hmm. Immediately, the second part of those conditions is accepted as fact by everyone. Terri is never going to regain consciousness at all, let alone to any sort of competent level where she would be able to communicate with you.
Right.
So the court must decide whether or not there is a clear and convincing evidence that she made reliable oral declarations which would support what her surrogate is now trying to do. The court said that they cannot hold some of the statements she made about Karen Ann Quinlan to a high regard since she was only 11 at the time, and that is on par with what anyone who was 11 would probably say. And that when speaking in general about it, was more so speaking of what she would do for someone else and not what she would want done for her. So she's like, yeah, leave Karen alone. But if it's me, statements that were able to be considered were some of the following. When at a funeral luncheon for Michael's grandmother, she stated in the presence of others, if she were ever in a situation like that, she would not want to be hooked up to a machine and to just let her go. When watching a movie with her mother-in-law about a man in a coma, Terri again said that she would want all the tubes out and she would not want to live like that. The court found that those counted as Terri's own oral declarations concerning the situation she is currently in, and Michael's request to have the feeding tube was removed was granted. Great, right? Mm-hmm. No. Mm. Not even close.
Oh my gosh.
In March 2000, the Schindlers filed a motion to permit assisted feeding of Terri, which is not considered a life-prolonging procedure under Florida law. So they're asking to feed her. Since clinical records indicated that Terri Schiavo was not responsive to swallowing tests and required a feeding tube, Judge Greer ruled that she was not capable of orally ingesting sufficient nutrition and hydration to sustain life and denied the request. In 2000, the Schindlers again challenged Michael Schiavo's guardianship. The Schindlers suggested that he was wasting assets within the guardianship account by transferring Terri Schiavo to a Pinellas Park, Florida hospice, quote, after it was clear that she was not terminal within Medicare guidelines for hospices. They're in denial.
Yeah.
By this time, while still legally married to Terri Schiavo, this is a decade later, before you want to judge Michael Schiavo. Yeah. Michael Schiavo was in a relationship with Jody Santanzi and had fathered their first child. He said he chose not to divorce his wife and relinquish guardianship because he wanted to ensure her final wishes, not being kept alive in a PVS, were carried out. The court denied the motion to remove the guardian, allowing that the evidence was not sufficient and in some instances not relevant.
This poor guy. Like, I can't help but feel bad for him.
Literally, I feel...
You have done everything to try... And, like, obviously... So, like, they were so young. Like, he needs to go on and live his life. There's
26.
No way to live.
What is he, 36 at this time now? He's still trying to get his wife peace. Okay. It was set April 24th, 2001 as the date of which the tube was to be removed. So that was the decision. It's still going on. In April of 2001, the Schindlers filed a motion for relief from judgment citing new evidence of Terri Schiavo's wishes. Judge Greer denied the motion as untimely under Rule 1.540B5 of the Florida Rule of Civil Procedure. The Second District Court of Appeal upheld Greer's decision, but remanded the issue in order to give the Schindlers an opportunity to file a new motion. On April 24th, 2001, Terri's feeding tube was removed for the first time. The Schindlers filed a civil suit against Michael Schiavo alleging perjury, which was assigned to another court. The judge, Frank Quesada, issued an injunction against the removal of the feeding tube until this was settled. The feeding tube was reinserted on April 26th, 2001.
Oh my God. So they took it out for 2 days, had to put it back in.
Yep. On appeal by Michael Schiavo, the Second District Court of Appeal reversed Judge Quesada's order. In the same time frame, Michael Schiavo filed a motion to enforce the mandate of the guardianship court that the feeding tube be removed. The Second District Court of Appeal denied the motion. That's called Schiavo 2. All of that is Schiavo 2. We're going to get into Schiavo 3 and 4. So on August 10th, 2001, on remand from the Florida 2nd District Court of Appeal, Judge Greer heard a motion from the Schindlers claiming that new medical treatment could restore sufficient cognitive ability, such as Terri Schiavo herself would be able to decide to continue life prolonging.
Oh my God, 10 years later? Absolutely not.
It was 11 and a half years later. They're saying, no. She went from zero brain activity to now they're saying she's going to be able to tell you.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. The court also heard motions from the Schindlers to remove the guardian, Michael Schiavo, and to require Judge Greer to recuse himself, basically saying he should also disqualify himself for a conflict of interest of sorts on his end. Judge Greer denied both motions, and the Schindlers appealed to the 2nd District Court of Appeals. On October 17th, 2001, the Court of Appeal affirmed the denials of the motion to remove and recuse, so they're like, yeah, no. The Court of Appeals acknowledged that their opinion misled the trial court, and they remanded the question of Terri Schiavo's wishes back to the trial court and required an evidentiary hearing to be held. The court specified that 5 board-certified neurologists were to testify. The Schindlers were allowed to choose 2 doctors to present findings at an evidentiary hearing, while Schiavo could introduce 2 rebuttal experts. And then the trial court itself would appoint a new independent physician to examine and evaluate Terri Schiavo's conditions. These decisions, all published in a single order by the Florida 2nd District Court of Appeal, came to be known by the court as Schiavo 3 in its later rulings. So, in October of 2002, 12 years later, on remand by the 2nd District Court of Appeal, an evidentiary hearing was held in Judge Greer's court to determine whether new therapy treatments could help Terri Schiavo restore any cognitive function, like they had alleged before, that she would be able to make these decisions herself. Mm-hmm. In preparation for the new trial, a computed axial tomography scan, a CAT scan. Never knew what CAT scan stood for, and I still don't know what that means. So they did a CAT scan. It was performed, which showed severe cerebral atrophy. An EEG showed no measurable brain activity. The atrophy, 5 physicians...
That's the word.
Atrophy?
Grey's Anatomy.
You do know that, because I've said that wrong several times.
Just like
Not today, but
atrophy.
like in general. Severe cerebral atrophy. No brain activity. The 5 physicians chosen were William Maxfield, a radiologist, and 4 neurologists, William Hamsfar, Ronald Cranford, Melvin Greer, no relation to the judge, and Peter Bambakidis.
They all sound smart.
They do. The 5 doctors examined Terri Schiavo's medical records, brain scans, the videos, and Terri herself.
You should have called Derek Shepard.
They should have. Cranford, Greer, and Bambakidis testified that Terri Schiavo was in a persistent vegetative state, which was decided 11 years ago. Mm-hmm. Doctors Maxfield and Hammersfar testified that she was in a minimally conscious state. As part of the court-ordered medical exam, 6 hours of video of Terri Schiavo were taped and filed at the Pinellas County Courthouse. The tape included Terri Schiavo with her mother and neurologist William Hammersfar. The entire tape was viewed by Judge Greer, who wrote Terri clearly does not consistently respond to her mother. From that 6 hours of video, the Schindlers and their supporters produced 6 video clips intended to support their case, totaling less than 6 minutes. Less than 6 minutes
out of 6 hours.
Yeah. Which I'm sure weren't even
anything.
Her responding to anything.
Yeah.
Just her moving for 6 minutes out of 6 hours. And they released those clips to public websites. Judge Greer ruled that Terri Schiavo was in a PVS and was beyond hope of significant improvement. The trial court order was particularly critical of Hamsfar's testimony, which claimed positive results in similar causes by use of vasodilation therapy, something with expanding the blood vessels to help with heart problems, like something like that. But the success of which was unsupported in medical literature, so it wasn't even anything. This ruling was later affirmed by Florida's 2nd District Court of Appeal, which stated that this court has closely examined all the evidence in the record, and we have carefully observed the videotapes in their entirety. The court concluded that if we were called upon to review the guardianship court's decision de novo, which basically means without any other knowledge, we would still affirm it. So they're basically saying if they did this all over again with a whole fresh new trial, they would say the same thing.
Same thing, yeah.
We would decide the same exact thing. The District Court of Appeals concluded that the Schindlers have presented no credible evidence suggesting new treatment can restore Mrs. Schiavo. This decision by the 2nd District Court of Appeals came to be known as Schiavo 4 in later rulings. Around the start of 2003, the Schindlers began to create more publicity by lobbying for their case to keep their daughter alive.
My goodness, I cannot believe this.
Some part in here really got me where I'm like, you have got to be fucking kidding me. It's literally wild.
It's just terrible.
On September 11th, 2003, the Schindlers petitioned the court to forestall the removal of the feeding tube in order to provide for 8 weeks of therapy. Accompanying the petition were 4 affidavits from members of the Schindler family and 1 from Dr. Alexander T. Guyman. At the hearing, the Schindlers' counsel read into the record additional affidavits from 3 speech professionals and 2 nurses. In particular, Nurse Carla Sauer-Iyer asserted that she was able to feed Terri Schiavo orally, but that Michael characterized any such interaction as therapy and ordered her not to do so. Iyer claimed in her affidavit that her initial training in 1996 consisted solely of the instruction, do what Michael Schiavo tells you or you're terminated, and that standing orders were not to contact the Schindler family, but that she would call them anyway. On September 17, 2003, Judge George Greer denied the petition and wrote that the petition is an attempt by Mr. and Mrs. Schindler to relitigate the entire case. It is not even a veiled or disguised attempt. The exhibits relied upon by them clearly demonstrate this to be true. Regarding Nurse Iyer's statements, Greer wrote that they were incredible to say the least, and that Miss Iyer details what amounts to a 15-month cover-up from April 1995 through July 1996, which include the staff of the Palm Garden Largo Convalescent Center, the guardian of the person, the guardian ad litem, the medical professionals, the police, and believe it or not, Mr. and Mrs. Schindler. It is impossible to believe that Mr. and Mrs. Schindler would not have subpoenaed her for the January 2000 evidentiary hearing had Iyer contacted them in 1996, as her affidavit alleges. So saying you're just lying.
Yeah.
Had you had all this information,
all of this up.
you would have brought it up way earlier.
Yeah.
Because you were trying everything. It's not like you all of a sudden care. That was really wordy. It's just so many fucking
cruel.
words.
I just can't believe that, like, who can, ugh.
By mid-2003, the landscape and texture of Teresa Schiavo's case underwent profound changes. National media coverage, active involvement by groups advocating right to life, and the attention of the governor's office and Florida legislature catapulted Teresa's case into a different dimension. On October 6, 2003, Florida Governor Jeb Bush filed an amicus brief in support of the motion for a preliminary injunction. The brief argues that the removal of artificial nutrition resulting in death should be avoided if that person can take oral nutrition and hydration. On October 15, 2003, Terri's feeding tube was removed.
Oh, God.
Within a week, when the Schindler's final appeal was exhausted, State Rep. Frank Atkinson and the Florida legislature passed Terri's Law, an emergency session giving Governor Jeb Bush the authority to intervene. So Terri's Law, there's like no information about it. It was terrible. Mm-hmm. It was authorizing the governor under certain prescribed circumstances to issue a one-time stay of court-ordered withdrawal of life-sustaining measures and to appoint a guardian ad litem to review the matter and report back to the executive branch and the chief judge of the relevant Florida court. It's basically invented for her, saying that the governor can override the decision.
Yeah.
So Governor Bush immediately ordered the feeding tube reinserted.
Oh, my God.
Governor Bush sent the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to remove Schiavo from hospice. She was taken to Morton Plant Rehabilitation Hospital in Clearwater, where her feeding tube was surgically reinserted. She was then returned to the hospice. Part of the legislation required the appointment of a guardian ad litem. Again, her new guardian ad litem is Jay Wolfson, I think, to deduce and represent the best wishes and best interests of Terri Schiavo and report them to Governor Bush.
Nobody cares about her best wishes anymore. This is so far past that. Like,
insane.
Nobody's doing anything with her best wishes.
13 years later, they're just wheeling her around, ripping shit out of her and putting it back in her.
Absolutely. Can you imagine even if you did wake up at the end of that?
Pissed.
What the fuck? And, like, even after all this, she would never have a quality of life.
Never. That's what gets me.
Yeah.
It's like, why do you want this? Whatever. Wolfson's report did not change Michael's role as her guardian and did not otherwise obstruct him legally. So Michael's still in charge. Michael Schiavo opposed the governor's intervention in the Schiavo case and was represented in part by the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, always on the right side of history. At the same time, Robert and Mary Schindler, her parents, attempted to intervene and participate in the Terry's Law case, but were denied by Judge W. Douglas Baird, a circuit judge in the Florida Sixth Circuit. They appealed, and on February 13th, 2004, the Florida 2nd District Court of Appeals ordered Baird to hold future hearings on the issue. So they're saying, yeah, go ahead. On March 17th, 2004, Baird denied the Schindlers the right to intervene a second time. They're still trying. The Schindlers, represented by the American Center for Law and Justice, appealed the right to participate in the Terry's Law case, with the court scheduling an oral argument date for June 14th. This is 2004. The Schindlers' other attorney, Pat Anderson, was concurrently challenging Michael Schiavo's right to be her guardian. And on June 16th, 2004, she made a petition for a writ of quo warranto. Basically, it's a writ requiring the person to whom it is directed to show what authority they have for exercising some right, power, or franchise they can hold. Basically like a legal way to say, who are you?
Yeah.
Who are you to do this? Okay, well, he's her husband.
Correct.
So, on May 5th, 2004, Baird found Terry's Law unconstitutional and struck it down. Bush appealed this order to the 2nd District Court of Appeals.
A Bush, of course.
Of course it was. But on May 12th, 2004, the court issued an order relinquishing case for entry of final judgment in order to show cause why this proceeding should not be certified to the Supreme Court as requiring immediate resolution. The 2nd District Court of Appeals, in sending it directly to the Florida Supreme Court, invoked pass-through jurisdiction. I think what that is getting at is, like, we shouldn't be arguing this at this level. Let's just shoot it straight to the top and see what happens. We don't have time.
Right.
The Florida Supreme Court then overturned the law as unconstitutional. Terry's Law, unconstitutional. On February 23rd, 2005, the Schindlers filed a motion for release from judgment pending medical evaluations. The Schindlers wanted Terry to be tested with an fMRI and given a swallowing therapy called Vital Stim. The motion was accompanied by 33 affidavits from doctors in several specialties, speech-language pathologists and therapists, and a few neuropsychologists, all urging that new tests be undertaken. So they're just like going to all these doctors and getting all these affidavits. Patricia Fields Anderson, the Schindler family attorney, still held out hope that Terry might be able to take nourishment orally despite past findings that she is incapable. That's what got me. Like, just because she could swallow something, you want to keep her alive?
Yeah, like, she has no brain activity.
None. Pissed off. Pissed. Judge Greer formally denied the motion and ordered the removal of nutrition and hydration from the ward and set the time and date for the removal of the feeding tube as 1 p.m. on Friday, March 18th, 2005, 15 years later.
Holy shit.
So, before that, on February 28th, after that other motion, the Schindlers filed a motion asking for permission to attempt to provide Schiavo with food and water by natural means. The second motion asked for permission to attempt to feed Schiavo by mouth. Judge Greer denied the second motion on March 8th, basically saying it's the same as the first motion you've already filed, like you are just clogging everything up.
Mm-hmm.
The following day, Greer denied the first motion as well, citing that an affiant doctor for Michael cautioned that fMRI was an experimental procedure that should be conducted in an academic setting because Schiavo had already undergone swallowing tests and failed, and because Vital Stim had only been performed on patients who were not in a PVS.
Yeah, I'm like, she's not who they should be doing this on anyways.
No.
Like, it's not going to further any kind of science because it's not going to work.
No, they should have never considered her for this because they have never tried it on someone who is in a persistent vegetative state. Greer noted that most of the doctor affidavits submitted are based on their understanding of Schiavo's condition from news reports or video clips they have seen. Many are obviously not aware of the medical exams undertaken for the 2002 trial that showed how awful she really was. Mid-afternoon on March 18th, 2005, Terri Schiavo's feeding tube was removed for the third time. 15 years later.
Jesus Christ.
On March 19th, 2005, the day after it was removed, congressional leaders announced that they were drafting a bill which would transfer the case from state court to federal court. In the hours of March 20th, March 21st, Congress approved emergency legislation. Soon after Senate approval, the House of Representatives passed an identical version of the bill, Senate Bill 686, which came to be called the Palm Sunday Compromise, because it was signed on Palm Sunday, and transferred jurisdiction of the Schiavo case to federal courts. The bill passed the House on March 21st, 2005, at 12:41 a.m. Bush flew into Washington, D.C. from his vacation in Texas in order to sign this bill until at 1:11 a.m. 1:11 a.m. The federal government is getting involved in this case where this woman has had no brain activity for 15 years.
Insane.
This bill did have bipartisan support because while it was controversial, a lot of Republicans saw it as a right to life issue, and a lot of Democrats actually viewed it as a disabilities rights issue. Like,
right.
Maybe we shouldn't be pulling feeding tubes on people, but like perhaps maybe we should.
Yeah.
The act only applied to the parents of Terri Schiavo, not Terri herself, and gave federal courts jurisdiction to review alleged violations of her constitutional rights without regard to prior state court rulings. However, Congress did not attempt to create any new substantive rights for Schiavo or include any provision requiring the federal court to order reinsertion of the feeding tube pending review. In practice, the act only delayed the removal of the feeding tube. Like in state court, the parents' federal claims were denied, first by federal Judge James D. Whitmore and then by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. Finally, the U.S. Supreme Court said no.
Yeah.
Effectively bringing an end to the prolonged litigation. They're like, we're not even going to look at this because 80 courts before us have looked at this and they've all said the same thing.
Yeah, like enough is enough.
There are several more attempts by Terri's family to get the feeding tube reinserted. I don't feel the need to go over all of them because they're essentially the same shit.
Yeah.
We've already been saying. There is a link in the show notes called Timeline of Key Events. Look at that. It's 2 parts. It's so long they go to court so many times. On March 24th, 2005, Judge Greer denied a petition for intervention by the Florida Department of Child and Families and signed an order forbidding the department from taking possession of Teresa Marie Schiavo or removing her from the hospice, and directed each and every singular sheriff of the state of Florida, that's weird, to enforce his order. The order was appealed to the 2nd District Court of Appeals the following day, which resulted in an automatic stay under state law. While the stay was in effect, Florida Department of Law Enforcement personnel prepared to take custody of Terri Schiavo and transfer her to a local hospital for reinsertion of the feeding tube. Once Greer was made aware of the stay, he ordered it lifted and all parties stood down. He was basically like, no, we're not doing that. Governor Bush decided to obey the court order despite enormous pressure from the political right. If Bush, or the Florida legislature, had ignored Greer's orders by attempting to remove her from hospice, a confrontation between the Pinellas Park Police Department and the FDLE agents would have ensued. Mm-hmm. In jest, one official said local police discussed whether we had enough officers to hold off the National Guard. Like, I can't believe we are about to have to do this.
Like, oh my God.
Over one person.
The fucking, this is insane.
Who made 0% improvement in 15 years.
Yeah.
They're like, we should keep doing this.
Oh my, just the resources they are using. Like, this is insane.
When she has said she doesn't want to do this.
Yeah.
And the person in charge of her said, let's not do it.
It's insane. And it's even crazier because, like, they're married. Like, by law.
He can do this.
It should be up to him. That's insane.
And I think they said, I didn't put it in here. Maybe I did at the end. But had they not immediately, like when she got to the hospital, not hooked her up to something, she would have died that day.
Yeah. Right.
Like, there's no chance of survival for her without that. However, Terri Schiavo died at the Pinellas Park Hospice on March 31st, 2005, 15 years after her accident. Because the feeding tube had been removed that whole time.
Gosh, and like, at what point does he even get to grieve his wife?
You can't anymore.
Like, oh my gosh.
You just have to feel relief at this point.
Yeah. That really fucks you up, man. There's no way.
His whole adult life.
Yeah, has been this battle.
That's so awful. Schiavo's body was taken to the office of the District 6 medical examiner for Pinellas and Pasco counties based in Largo, Florida. The autopsy was conducted on April 1st, 2005 and revealed extensive brain damage. Examination of Schiavo's nervous system by neuropathologist Stephen J. Nelson revealed extensive injury. The brain itself weighed only 21.7 ounces, half of the weight expected for a female of her age, height, and weight, due to loss of massive number of neurons. Microscopic examination revealed extensive damage to nearly all her brain regions, including the cerebral cortex, the thalamus, the basal ganglia, the hippocampus, the cerebellum, and the midbrain. So her entire brain had extensive damage. The neuropathologic changes in her brain were precisely of the type seen in patients who enter a PVS following cardiac arrest. So that's exactly what happened. Throughout the cerebral cortex, the large pyramidal neurons that comprise some 70% of cortical cells critical to the functioning of the cortex were completely lost. The damage was, in the words of the chief medical examiner, irreversible, and no amount of therapy or treatment would have regenerated the massive loss of neurons. He did say that the autopsy did not determine the cause of her collapse.
Well, Jesus, 15 years later.
Yeah, there's nothing left. He said that his examination turned up no signs of abuse or trauma, allegations that Terri's parents leveled against Michael.
Oh my God.
So there's no proof of that. But without removal of the feeding tube, and if conditions such as pneumonia and urinary tract infections common in bedridden patients were treated, Terri Schiavo could have lived another decade.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like that.
That's insane.
25 years with no brain activity. That's what you wanted?
Just in a bed, like, oh my God, absolutely not.
The Schindler's attorney, David Gibbs, said their reports show what we have said, that Terri was not terminal. I don't know how they got that from. She could have lived 10 more miserable years. Terri Schiavo was not in an end-of-life situation. The decision was made to end her life, and we believe it was done in a barbaric manner. They then try and bring up...
What was barbaric was having it taken out and put back in 3 fucking times.
Literally. They then try to bring up that there was apparently a 70-minute gap between when Terri collapsed and when Michael called 911. There's actually no such evidence of that. And actually, Michael had consistently testified in the malpractice suit several times that, like, he heard a thud and then immediately called 911. Florida Governor Jeb Bush, who tried to intervene on the Schindler's behalf, said in a written statement the Wednesday after that Terri's life and her death remind us all that life is so fragile and must be valued. Then he says, "We will continue to strive to protect our most vulnerable citizens. All innocent human life is precious, and government has a duty to protect the weak, disabled, and vulnerable." He wrote, "Our thoughts and prayers remain with the Schindler family during this most difficult time." No mention of Michael or Michael's family.
What a fucker.
What a fucker. I knew I didn't like him.
Nope.
Schiavo's body was cremated. Her parents offered a memorial mass for her at the Holy Name of Jesus Catholic Church in Gulfport on April 5th, 2005. Father Frank Pavone, the founder of the Priests for Life anti-abortion organization, delivered the main homily.
That adds.
That tracks. On June 20th, 2005, the cremated remains of Terri Schiavo were buried. Michael had said that her ashes would be buried at a family plot in Pennsylvania, but on Monday, his attorney, George Falo, said in a statement that the service and interment had taken place at Sylvan Abbey Memorial Park in Clearwater. The statement did not explain why Michael Schiavo, who lives near Clearwater, decided to keep his wife's remains in Florida, and he did not return a phone call seeking additional information.
Yeah, leave him the hell alone.
Leave him alone. He's in charge of this.
Oh my God. And, like, he has a whole nother life. Can you imagine having to explain this to your child?
Yeah, so his kid's probably like 8.
Yeah.
10
like,
maybe.
What the fuck?
Schiavo's parents had opposed her cremation and hoped to bury her in their adopted state of Florida, which he did end up doing. He did end up burying her in Florida. The Schindler's attorney said the family was notified by fax only after Monday's service, when the family had already started getting calls from reporters. Michael's lawyer says that's not true. They were notified of the service and burial. They just didn't go. A pond and fountain also marked Terri Schiavo's grave, where the flat bronze marker was festooned with flowers Monday evening. Her gravestone reads, "Teresa Marie Schiavo, beloved wife, born December 3rd, 1963, departed this earth February 25th, 1990, at peace March 31st, 2005, and then at the bottom it says, I kept my promise." Basically, that was him saying that, like,
wow,
I kept my promise. Got you out of there.
Oh, poor guy. I hope he has the best life.
Her parents hated that.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
Sure. Their lawyer said right after that, obviously that's a real shot and another unkind act toward a grieving mom and dad. They didn't like the I kept my promise, and they didn't like the departed this earth on February 25th, 1990 part, which is really when she did.
She was not there. She was not in her body.
No. But Brian Schiavo said the Schindlers, that's one of his other brothers, shouldn't consider themselves that important. He said, I know the Schindlers look at it as a slap in the face, but they had nothing to do with that. That was based from Michael to Terri.
Yeah, like, this was his wife.
His wife.
Oh my God. This
wild?
is fucked up.
I'm getting a living will immediately.
Same. Like, this is so fucked up.
I can't have this happen to me. In 2006, both Michael Schiavo and the Schindlers released books telling their sides of the story. Schiavo's was called Terri the Truth, while the Schindlers was titled A Life That Matters, The Legacy of Terri Schiavo, A Lesson for Us All. Did they learn a lesson? Did they learn a fucking lesson? Because it doesn't sound like it. I'm not reading that book. Which is why you can't almost read anything except court things about this, because people feel so strongly about it.
One way or the other.
The book I started to read, like, the first page was like, Terry's husband wanted her to starve to death. I'm like, oh, Jesus
Here we go.
Christ. Despite the extended emotion-led legal struggle, the case broke no legal ground. It remains settled law that the spouse is the next of kin in decisions where the patient is incompetent. However, it is now more generally recognized that the next of kin's decision should be carried out in a timely fashion, even on matters of life and death. The case has raised public awareness of the value of having an advanced medical directive. Living will. Get a living will.
Seriously.
Or get a podcast and say on air.
Yeah. That's for everyone to know. Don't you ever. Oh my God.
15 years. Even if she woke up, she wouldn't even know who she was.
No, and the rehab her body would have to go through, just everything. She would never be the person she was.
No. I can't believe they were still grasping at straws after 15 years. Like, well, if she can swallow this, we should keep her alive. Like, is that how you want her to live?
Like, were they not seeking any kind of, like, therapy?
Clearly not for themselves.
Something needs to happen for them to, like, accept that she was no longer there.
No.
This was not a fight. Like, this just wasn't. Oh, my gosh.
I very much remember this happening.
I don't remember any of this.
But I had no idea, like, what it was. Because obviously not in 2005.
Yeah.
Like 12. There's, like, a pretty famous picture of her. You might know it. If you see it, I'll show you. Like, her mom hugging her or something. But, like, don't do that to me. I don't want to look like that. I don't want that. Give me a little time. Because sometimes people do make weird recoveries out of nowhere. But if there is no sign, get going. Plus, we can't afford it. Yeah, that's what actually happened to Terri Schiavo.
That's insane.
Kept alive for 15 years when she really would have died that day had they not intervened. Like, she was not going to make it. There's no hope. Oh, my
gosh. These pictures are so sad.
That's what I'm saying. I don't want to look like that.
This
Awful.
is crazy.
I can't believe the federal government got involved. What the fuck was George Bush doing?
Like,
it's not like she was unconscious for 3 days and he's trying to pull the plug.
Yeah.
With a little brain activity. 15 years. You leave this family alone after 15 years.
That's insane.
I'm pretty sure they have come to terms and he has tried everything that he could.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to move on because she doesn't want to live like this.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's just terrible. Well, get your living wills. Guys.
Yeah, get your living wills.
All right.
That's that.
That's wild.
Sorry that was so long, but
that's okay.
There was no getting around all of that shit. We will see you on Friday for the Patreon. And then Friday, we're also recording a whole new batch of episodes for you.
So?
Including a riveting two-parter.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
That has been heavily requested by Terri.
Me and me alone. Wait. All right.
Let's go.
See you guys Friday.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at AlmostPod. If you want an additional episode every week, you can find us at Patreon at AlmostPod.
If you have a case you want us to cover, throw it in a review on Apple Podcasts. You can find merch and all other information at bitchpackmedia.com. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.